The first measurement I'll take is half of my shoulder measurement. I'll mark it. From the shoulder measurement, I'll go down by 1 inch. Then I'm going to mark my neck measurement, which is 3 inches. After that, I'll draw it to my shoulder slope. From the shoulder measurement, I'm going to mark my armhole. To get your armhole, all you have to do is to divide your bust by 6. Then you add 1.5. I'm going to extend the line right there. After that, I'm going to connect my lines. Guys, I've already drawn out my armhole. I forgot to record it. So basically what I did was to get a quarter of my bust measurement. Then I marked it and I added 1 inch allowance. After that, I got half of my armhole measurement. Then I went in by half of an inch from the half. Then I just drew out my armhole curve. From my shoulder measurement, I'll go down by 3 inches to get my neck depth. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to connect it with a curve. From my shoulder, I'm going to measure how long I want my top to be. I made mine 21 inches. I'll go back to my bust line, then I'll go down by 6 inches. This is for my waist measurement. Then I'll mark quarter of my waist measurement. Then I'll add 1 inch to it. I'll also mark the same measurement on the bust length. Then I'll connect them with a straight line. Once I'm done with all that, I'll go back to my shoulder. Then I'm going to add half an inch allowance to it. The next thing I'm going to do is to cut out my pattern. After cutting it out, I'm going to open it up like so. All the measurement I'm going to take now will take place at the center line. After that, I'm going to add half an inch allowance to the center line. Then I'm going to draw a straight line to connect them. From my top length, I'm going to go up by 4 inch. I'm going to mark it. Then I'm going to just draw a curve from the 4 inches to the center line. I actually did not measure the point where the curve meets the center line. So I'm just going to use my free hand to shape the point. The next thing I'm going to do is to cut it out. After I'm done cutting out the pattern, I went ahead to pin it on my fabric. Before that, I make sure my fabric is folded into 2 and right sides are facing each other. This is because this top is a wrap top. I don't want to make a mistake when you're making one. So guys, this is what it looks like all cut out. After cutting out the front piece, I also cut out a facing for the front piece. To cut out the facing, what I did was to place the top on a piece of fabric. Once I'm done cutting it out, I'm going to place the facing on the top, then I'm going to stitch it. To finish the edges of the facing, you can either interlock it or just fold it and stitch it. For the back piece, I'll be using silk and chiffon for it, so I have to first join it together. So basically, I have 2 pieces of silk for the upper part, then I have 1 piece of chiffon for the lower part. For the chiffon, I went ahead to stitch it by half of an inch at the center back, but you should stitch yours by 1 inch. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to open up the chiffon, then I'm going to sandwich this chiffon in between these 2 silk. Just watch the way I did it in the video. After I'm done with that, I'll go to my sewing machine and stitch them up by half of an inch. So guys, this is how it looks like after I'm done stitching it up. Once I'm done with that, the next thing I did was to take my pattern paper and just cut it off from the center line. After cutting out the pattern, I'm going to pin up my pattern on my fabric. The only difference for the back pattern was that on the neckline, I went up by 2 inches. Then I'm going to connect it to my shoulder slope. After that, I'll go ahead and cut out my fabric. Back to my front piece, this is how it looked like after I was done attaching my facing. The next thing I did was to join both my back and front shoulders together, making sure right sides are facing each other. Once I'm done stitching my shoulder, I'll measure my armhole, then I'll go ahead and cut out my sleeve. The first thing I did was to measure my sleeve length, then I took out 3 inches from it. After that, I went down by 3 inches, then I marked it. Then I draw a curve to connect it to the 3 inches depth. Right here, I'm just checking if my sleeve opening is the same as my armhole opening. Once I'm done taking all the measurements, I'll be cutting out my sleeve. Then I'll go ahead and fix my zip to my top. After that, I'll go ahead and join the sides of my top. The next thing I have to do is to measure my round sleeve. The next thing I'm going to do is to cut out a flare, but I'm going to cut it out on the pattern paper first before I cut it out on my fabric. To get this measurement, all I did was to divide my sleeve circumference, like my ankle circumference, by 3.142. So whatever I get, I'm going to mark it round on the edge of my pattern paper. Once I've gotten that, from that half circle, I'm going to measure the length I want my flare to be. So I'm going to measure it round. Once I'm done taking all the measurements, I'm going to cut out my pattern paper. The next thing I did was to fold my fabric into 4 before pinning down my pattern. After that, I'll be cutting out my fabric. So guys, I'm going to cut out 2 pieces for my sleeve. Then I'm going to hem the flare. Then I'm going to attach it to my sleeve. Next thing I'm going to do is the collar. So for the collar, I'm going to measure my round neck. From the video, you can see that I did not start from the facing. I started from the real round neck, not the facing. So just watch what I did in the video. The round neck was 20, which was quite much. It should be around 16 or 18. To cut out my collar, I folded my paper stay into 2. Then I took out 4 inches from the 20 inches round neck. So that makes it 16. Then I marked 8 inches on my paper stay. The height of the collar is 3 inches. So I also marked that. The next thing I did was to get the midpoint of the collar. So half of it is 4. So I marked that. Then by the edge, I went up by half of an inch. Then I'm just going to connect it with a curve, with a slight curve right there. By the other edge, I also went out by half of an inch. Then I'm going to connect my lines. Once I'm done with that, I'll cut out my pattern paper. Then I'm going to iron it on my fabric. So guys, this is what it looks like once I press it on my fabric. So I have 2 pieces for this. What I'm going to do is to place the fabric that has paper stay on the one that does not. Then I'm going to stitch by the edges. Just watch where I'm pointing at. That's what you should stitch on. After stitching, I'll trim off the excess fabric. Once I'm done, I'm going to turn it inside out. After turning, I'm going to stop stitch on my collar. This is what my collar looks like once I'm done with it. Next thing I did was to fold the collar into half, then just give it a notch. After that, I'll be attaching my collar to my top. So you want to make sure the one with the paper stay will be the one on the right side, like it will be the one on the upper part. You also have to notch the midpoint of your top, I mean the round neck. Then you attach both midpoints together. After that, I went ahead to pin the collar around the round neck. Once I get to the edge where the collar stops, I'm going to measure 2 inches from the edge of the round neck. I'll make sure the collar is at 2 inches point. Then I'm going to fold the facing right on the collar, just as you can see in the video. Also, once I get to where the facing stops, I'm going to notch it. Then I'll lift up part of the collar, the one with the paper stay. Then I'll continue sewing till I get to the other edge of the collar. Then I'll do the same. I'm going to measure 2 inches right there, fold it on the collar. This is actually not a detailed tutorial on the collar, so if you're interested in one, let me know in the comment section. So once I'm done stitching that, this is what it looks like. Then the next thing I'll do is to fold the other collar inside. Then I'm going to top stitch. After I'm done with the collar, I'm going to fix my rope. I already cut out this rope. It measures 3 inches and is quite long. I will say it's around 60 inches. Yeah. So I'm going to fix it to my top. The next thing I'm going to do is to put the rope in between the top and the facing. Then I'll go ahead and stitch it up. After that, I'm going to hem my top. Then we are basically done with our top. So guys, this is how it looks like once we are done making the top. All you have to do is to press your collar so that it will lay flat once you put it on. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel. Bye.